The Minnesota Vikings lean on their young signal caller, and their reward, biggest win of the season. How can you not love it? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. I appreciate my hashtag everydayers so very much. Y'all make the world go round. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Today on the show is a celebration. We finally got the McCarthy game that we have been waiting for. Was it gangbusters, 400 yards, 5 touchdowns going? No. And if you expected that, then your expectations were put in the wrong place. But what we saw from McCarthy and the Vikings' 27-24 win over the Detroit Lions in Detroit was the heroism that he had been heralded for. We wanted to see him lead the team, and lead the team he did. 2 touchdowns through the air, 1 on the ground, 1 interception, and we'll get to all of that. There were certainly mistakes in this, but here's what I'm going to say about the McCarthy thing. We're also going to talk about the defense today. There were some hero performances from guys who super needed them. I'll also keep you updated on all of the injury news and all that other stuff you need to know, and how this thing affects the Vikings moving forward, which we can make of this game. And we got some coaching decisions to discuss as well. So quite a bit to get to on this show, if we can even get to all of it. But what we have to start with is, of course, how McCarthy played. And the stats look kind of pedestrian. A couple touchdowns and interception, like 143 yards. EPA per play was negative through the air. Thanks in large part to the 1 interception that really hurts him. Plus, a lot of the best plays were not like that EPA positive because they were already in scoring range. So they weren't quite as like situationally valuable, and that can kind of sink that too, which is fair of that stat. But what I'm saying is, for a statistically pedestrian day, it was exactly what I wanted to see out of McCarthy. You can go back to, check me on this, right? You can go back to what I said going into this game on the first segment of the Friday show. But I just needed to see it look competent. I just needed to see it work generally, to see the timing be okay, and for there to be, for the Vikings to move the ball generally. And that included the run game and the whole team. I just needed to see them show up to a game for once, especially to get off to a hot start. But like the whole rest of the season has been the Vikings completely tripping over their own shoelaces, and then maybe they get up in the last 10 minutes and say, oh, there's a football game on, and like maybe make it close, right? So I needed to see that not happen. I needed to see them look like a football team that practiced, that looked like semi-competent. And that's what we got. And the quarterbacking was competent for sure. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. There were mistakes. There was the interception that I know a lot of people, by the way, are going to get really mad about the call on that interception. Maybe it shouldn't have been an interception, but we can probably agree that wasn't a great throw. But it was on the run, and it was a little bit behind him, not uncatchably so, but just enough to pull the D-back, and the D-back made a good play. As an interception, it's probably not the one you're going to be the angriest about, but you do have to mark it down as a bad play. There were those busted plays, those problems in the huddle seem to still be happening with, the running back hearing that we're going to go one way and the O-line thinking we're going to go the other way. I do have a theory on that, by the way, with why that kept happening. The way that the McVay-Shanahan tree play calls work, left is an even number, I think, and right is an odd number. So if you are, or no, I'm sorry, other way around. Right is an even number. So if you call 18, that's a zone run to the right. If you call 19, that's a zone run to the left. And 14 and 15 is a different kind of zone run to the right and the left, respectively. So if you start saying those play calls in the huddle and someone hears 19 when you said 18, then they're going to get the wrong idea. And so what that tells me is that McCarthy isn't being enunciative and clear enough in the huddle. That is an easy thing to fix, right? That is not a world-ending problem. You just say, hey, speak a little clearer. Jordan Mason didn't hear you. We got to fix that. It ruins a play and it sucks. It's very costly. But remember that we are talking about a 22-year-old quarterback. There's going to be things that you have to learn on the fly. You do not just come out of the box as a 4-time Pro Bowler, 10-year veteran that makes the playoffs all the time. You have to work to that. And that's what I think we've lost our way on here with McCarthy a little bit. There kind of has not been room for him to make mistakes. People are moving on from him. People are ready. I've got people in my mailbag that are saying, I think I'm done with this. We're retrading him, right? Who are the quarterbacks in the draft? Max Brosmer? What if we traded for Kirk Cousins? What if we went with Carson Wentz for the rest of the year? Obviously, that last one was made moot. But that mentality I've never really jived with, because these are the kinds of things that you see in one game and then you address them and you don't see them in the next game. For example, the Vikings broke the huddle a lot better than the last time J.J. McCarthy played. If you remember that Atlanta game, they were breaking the huddle at 9-10 seconds, and it was the same in Chicago. It was taking McCarthy too long to get through the huddle process, to get through the relaying of the play call, and then they wouldn't have the time at the line to do what McCarthy wanted to do. In this case, they were breaking a lot at 18 seconds, and then using that time at the line. They were still snapping with 1-2 seconds on the clock, but that time was going to good use. They were using it to get a motion, to maybe get an alert going on, to communicate something, to make an adjustment for McCarthy to read things. And then they were in a lot of better play calls throughout the whole game, even if that meant that they don't go on J.J. McCarthy's stat line because he checked into a run, but if he was right to check into a run, you're really happy with that. That's, I think, a great texture of it. Like the play calls were by and large what you needed them to be, and they were executed the way that you needed them to be. And then, hey, somebody takes an L to Aiden Hutchinson, or the receiver doesn't quite bring it in, and we can worry about those things. But like, my whole theory about the Vikings has been they would be able to hang with the best teams in the NFL if they could just do what they were supposed to do. If everybody was just attempting the right thing, whether they were succeeding at that thing or not, if they all just knew what they were supposed to do and went and tried to do it, that this team would ascend to a much more serious place. And that's exactly what we saw here. And that's the improvement from J.J. McCarthy we've seen now from week 2 to this. That's what we needed to see, right? I needed to see growth. I needed it to not just be the Atlanta game redo. And we did see growth. So I am very much satisfied with that, at least for this one. Right? If you take this game, you copy paste it into 2028, we're not satisfied with it, right? Like, he's got to know better than that by now. But for a young quarterback dealing with a few of those mistakes that are way more palatable than what we were dealing with the last few weeks, which is like you had a wide open touchdown and you didn't throw to it, and instead you threw, an intentional grounding to the dirt, or took a sack, like a real sack, or, scrambled around and heaved up some idiot ball. That is so much harder to palate because the opportunity was so obvious and there and in front of you, and you missed it. There's meat left on the bone. With this, it's, oh no, you knew what opportunity you were supposed to take. You were supposed to throw that to Jalen Naylor on the run. You had him on the crosser, you made the right decision, and the ball was just a little behind him. And you got on that one. All right, get it in front of him next time. So much more fixable than, I don't know what you're looking at or why you're not reading the play, and I can't really call a play for you. So I guess we're just going to run stick all day. So much more fixable. And it's so much nicer to be in this world. Breaking news, backup is not as good as starter for those of you who haven't been inundated in the conversation for the last 2 months. But I do feel the need to kind of take a lap on that, because I think we really lost the plot with McCarthy because of the statistical nature. And I'm not just talking about, what I argued with like Arif Hassan on the Squad Show about. There was a lot of it. There was a lot of like, not only was it, hey, those 2 games were bad statistically, really bad statistically. And that's kind of where Arif's argument ended. It was, hey, just got to point out those are bad. But where everybody else took it was, okay, so who are they going to trade for? Max Brosmer is maybe the guy. I'm looking at you, Seifert. That's like throwing those kind of things out there. There's turmoil inside the building, and there's all of this stuff feels as though it was born of, we got bored because we had to wait for J.J. McCarthy more. And here he comes now, and he has a perfectly solid day. The good very much outweighed the bad with this game, and I guess that's where my kind of prior is I'm going to go in, watch the tape, check on all these takes, and I'm going to pour through a bunch of details and probably post a really long Patreon about it. So if you want to just bask in a win over the Lions, go check it out at patreon.com/LukeBrownNFL when it's out, probably tomorrow. or maybe even tonight if I'm good about it. But those fade balls to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison on that first drive, improvising and throwing up this like rainbow to Jordan Addison to get the ball into the red zone. And then the one that clinches the game, that ice cold fade on a rub and wheel concept to Jalen Nailor. That is a tough throw to make. And that's the thing that got me really excited, was that like so many of the big plays in this one weren't easy manufactured throws. That's what we were dealing with a backup quarterback, where you're going a great play, but this was a flat route that he took upfield and made a play out of. Or if you did throw deep, it was like a seam ball that was wide open through two safeties. No, he was throwing to covered guys, because the Lions, and I think they were right about this, they liked their corners and tried to match up with Terry and Arnold and Amik Robertson, and those two guys played really well in this game and gave not a lot of space. So a lot of those passes had to be picture perfect, and they were a lot of the time. And if there was a tiny little miss, it led to, the craziest punish of all time and, the interception, and it ruins the stats. But I think if you go through play to play and you ask yourself over and over and over, am I happy with how JJ McCarthy played on this one? Am I happy with how JJ McCarthy played on this one? And if you do that for yourself, I think you're going to find that you're satisfied with this game. I know I certainly am. We also have to talk about the defense and they finally cracked the code of the Lions, and we have to talk about that, plus the clock management and all that. We'll get to it all next on Locked On Vikings.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs. With features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance, you can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go, while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So, let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from getting confused, keep you from getting the workaround, and you don't have to keep punting projects down the road. And their industry-leading customer service always has you ahead of the chains. If you need parts super fast, they have next day delivery at Supply House, and their part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. So you can start the project, make a plan, execute the plan, get it done. And that is that. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off of your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Moving on with the Locked On Vikings podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. The defense has been in a horrible, horrible place, both for the last few weeks, right? The game against the Chargers, you're coming off of that, and the vibes are terrible, but also Ford Field in particular has had the Vikings GOAT since before O'Connell and Flores even got here, before Kwesi got here or anything. Like the game before they fired Mike Zimmer was the one where the Lions were 0-10-1 and they walked down the Vikings to get their first win of the season. That all preceded everybody who's here in Minnesota for the most part, except for some of the veterans that have been around forever. So walking into this game and doing what the defense did to this Lions offense, like go listen to Matt Derry on Locked On Lions. And be nice, by the way. Don't be the kind of person that leaves like a stupid comment because your team won. Don't be that cow. Don't be like that one Bears fan. But go listen, give him a listen and hear what he has to say, how their perception lined up with their expectations going into that game. The Lions cannot possibly be happy with their output in this game, and that is a testament to the defense. They got pressure all the time on Jared Goff. They stopped the run like crazy. I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how they did that. And I honestly think it was that Flores didn't move off of the thing that I wanted him to move off of, which was that 3D tackle and then like Eric Wilson off the edge. They're still doing that, and it just worked against the Lions. Maybe this was a thing that was cooked up for like only the Lions, and it just didn't work against other teams or something. But whatever it was, it worked. Not to mention, you're getting performances out of these games, or out of some of these guys that were so needed. Javon Hargrave, it looked like he was benched in LA. He played 18 snaps. It was all Jalen Redmond and Levi Drake Rodriguez, and they weren't getting home, or Levi wasn't getting home, and Jonathan Allen was. In this game, he played way more. I think 37 snaps in this one, which is a much more normal total for a defensive tackle. He gets pressure. He's splitting the doubles instead of letting them sled him down. Like everything that I've been complaining about with Javon Hargrave didn't happen in this game. So consider this my public apology to Javon Hargrave. This is a fantastic game, and I've been going at him pretty hard in the last few weeks because I think that he has been at the center of what has been this sort of meltdown against the run. When that D tackle gets moved, everybody else's job gets harder. And they weren't up to that task, but really it didn't have to be that hard if your D tackle does his job. Well, in this case, he did his job and everyone's job got easier. He gets in the backfield or just holds his ground, and then the linebackers can come flying. So when you see, like everybody's saying, like the linebackers had this great game, and they're not wrong. Linebackers did great. Blake Cashman forces a fumble at a very key moment in this game. Eric Wilson has all kinds of major plays in this game. Both these guys, they got a game ball. They deserve it. Don't get it twisted. But it is not in any way a coincidence that we're talking about the linebackers having their big redemption day on the same day that Javon Hargrave has his. That is a symbiotic relationship, and everybody did their job this time, and it turned out a lot better. But schematically, things worked pretty well also. They sent a lot of blitzes. They blitzed like 60% of the time, which is quite a bit, especially for the Lions, who have shredded this blitz in the past. If you look at the last 4 games as any like indication at all, you should not blitz in this game. But what the Vikings did, what Brian Flores did, I don't think he was sending him just to send him. I don't think this was like nope, I'm Brian Flores and I'm crazy and I'm just blitzing. You have to be willing to, right? But I think it was more than that. So the theory, I guess, that I have here, and I'm going to go check on this, is that the nature of the blitzes, there's a lot of cross-dog blitzes, that's the one you see where the two linebackers kind of twist at each other. One of them attacks the center, and then the other one has to come in later and attack the running back. And sometimes it's like vice versa, right? So essentially what you want is the Lions to call a protection that requires the running back to get the blitzer. You want them to be in a protection that says, running back, you're coming to get the blitzer. You need somebody like a firecracker like Ivan Pace, but Cashman and Wilson did well at this job as well when it was them, to just blow up the center. Just get right in that center's face and just hit him. Just occupy him, but also move him as much as you can. And you get a running start. So I know he's bigger than you, but you can maybe get him to go. Ivan Pace is phenomenal at this job, and the other two did fine. And then the second guy that comes in essentially will then have a bunch of space and a one-on-one with the running back. Go win your rep, right? Last week, they tried some of this stuff, and Blake Cashman couldn't win his rep. Maybe it was the travel. Maybe it was all this excuse making, right? And like maybe that cope was right. Like I didn't really give it a lot of credence because it just felt like excuses to me. But this did feel like a much different team than the one that had to go travel, play a night game on the West Coast where it's like 10 p.m. for your body clock, and hold up in that game, and they couldn't. Which, again, soft excuse to me. Because like, why couldn't you handle it? That just raises a different question that reflects poorly on you. But if that were the case, and then they come back a little bit stronger this time, it would make sense. But the other thing it does is it encourages the Lions to put their bigger running back out there. It makes them put Montgomery out there instead of Gibbs. Montgomery is no slouch, but Gibbs is like a linchpin of their offense. And in these games, like the one where they hung 50 on the Bears, or when they kill the Bucks at home, like they have done some really nasty things to teams at home. And in all of those games, it's Jahmyr Gibbs breaking off big runs, and he's going for 180 yards and they've found the way to make that run game his run game and really destroy it. But he can't do that if he's on the bench because you're sending a cross-dog blitz and he's getting beat by Eric Wilson, which happened. It gave up a sack. And then the next time they did it, and Tom Brady on the broadcast, who was incredibly biased toward the Vikings, like he was just doing the Michigan thing. And I'm not going to be mad at it. But as he described that, the same blitz beats Gibbs, gets a sack, and then doesn't beat Montgomery, gets a sack. But now it's Montgomery trying to run zone. He's not going to be as explosive and as fast and as difficult to handle if you can block things up. And he's not as hard to tackle as Jahmyr Gibbs. I still like Montgomery as a back. Like, I still think he's a good player, but he's not Jahmyr Gibbs. That's a much different dynamic. And so that the blitzes had that sort of runoff effect in addition to getting Jared Goff under pressure a whole bunch and making him get rid of the ball. And, passes are one hopping. He didn't handle the pressure well. If you didn't know any of the context heading into this game and you said, which one of these quarterbacks, after watching it, which one of these quarterbacks is better at dealing with pressure, 1,000,000%, you'd say, oh, number 9 in white absolutely was better at dealing with pressure. Even though that's not the reputation of these guys at all. And that's how you pull an upset, right? Is you do something that nobody expects, like have your 22-year-old second-year quarterback do better against pressure than the guy who's been dicing up your blitzes for 2.5 years. So all in all, from both a schematic and just a get up for the game kind of standpoint, the Vikings earned quite a triumph in this game and holding the Lions at home to 24. And, even that last touchdown didn't feel like it was all that particularly impactful. It made the Vikings get one first down instead of just being able to kind of quietly run the game out or run the clock out at the end. And they got that first down. So it turned into a moot point, but that big Jameson Williams touchdown, happened in a little bit of a different situation. Although it was interesting that Isaiah Rodgers kind of played like he had help, but didn't have help. I'm curious. I'm going to go look at what kind of happened there, but, the point I'm rambling into is that the Vikings earn their flowers in this one, but things aren't going to get any easier as Lamar Jackson and the Ravens come to town with their backs against the wall, by the way. I mean, this is like a cornered animal. Lamar Jackson is coming to your house. Good luck. So they have to keep this stuff up, but you get to be happy about this one. That's a really, really tough game to give to the Detroit Lions. It's really hard to play them that tough. And I was sitting in the third quarter and it was very unclear who was going to win. And it was 17-14 and it's on a knife's edge. And I'm sitting there going man, even if they do kind of fall away here and the Lions figure it out and win this game, I'm satisfied. I was sitting there feeling they've shown me what I needed them to show me on both sides of the ball, that they could go into a really tough place to play against a really good team and hang. And okay, they've figured something out. Now this is something we can build on. My idea of this season is still very much internal to the Vikings. It is not about, hoping the Panthers pull it out against the Packers, which they did, and I'm happy about it. Good job. But it's the season still isn't about that to me. It's still about trying to figure out your own issues and figure out what does a JJ McCarthy offense with Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, this O-line, it's built and it's all under contract for a while. So what is this thing supposed to be and look like? And we got quite a few steps closer to that in this one. And I think on defense, what is this defense supposed to be in the long term? Because whatever it was in 23 is not sustainable. Whatever it was last year got figured out. So what is it going to be long term that can go from one game to the next and be something? We're getting closer to figuring that out as well, and learning how to play as a team and kind of pulling out of that deathly tailspin that you were in over the last calendar month where you dropped 3 out of 4. That's the exciting part to me. There are a couple of coaching things that I do want to get to and a couple of odds and ends from this game that I want to mention. So that'll be next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And as the NFL season wears on, the NBA is here. Baseball, mercifully, is over, and it is time for the real sports. So Let's say you are a Vikings fan and a Wolves fan, many such cases, and you want to put a little something extra on the game. You could maybe parlay the Minnesota Timberwolves money line and the Vikings plus 3.5 against the Ravens, or maybe even their money line. Timberwolves and Vikings, and if they both win against the Ravens and then the Brooklyn Nets on Monday respectively, that's a plus 243, plus 243. That is the kind of thing you can find at FanDuel. And even if you miss the start of the game, you don't get stuff super ahead of time. FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next, fourth quarter comebacks, individual stats, and you can put it all into a same game parlay if you prefer. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Moving on with the Locked On Vikings podcast, there's a couple things that I want to address with this game. One is, so Jonathan Grenard has gotten like a lot of hate in this one, which I fully do not understand. I get it that like it's frustrating when you see somebody get through the line, get to the quarterback, but not take down the quarterback. But I think sometimes we accidentally feel, because that play is frustrating, it like feels worse in our mind than the guy who didn't get to the backfield at all. Or the guy who didn't do anything, or the guy who just got stopped up and didn't push the pocket at all. And sometimes when those plays happen, when you get to the backfield and you don't make the tackle, it's because there's too much room for the quarterback to work. Do me a favor. Go look at the sacks that the Vikings got on Jared Goff and ask yourself on those plays, where was he supposed to go? If he saw that sack coming from a mile away, where was he able to go? And you're not going to find great answers because the pocket got pushed on those plays. So the blitzer actually has a nice, clean, easy lane to get to the quarterback and gets there, makes the tackle. And then if you look at the ones that got missed, you're going to see, oh, there's all kinds of room. He steps up, right? Or he's able to kind of step to the side and get somewhere. And honestly, it was the same thing with Minnesota with J.J. McCarthy. Whenever he would evade a sack, he had a ton of room to because Christian Darrisaw was winning his reps super hard. I don't feel like a super strong need to like defend Jonathan Grenard. I think most people understand how good and how important he is to the Vikings. But if you're somebody that is looking at him miss a few sacks and going, is this guy worth his contract? And you're starting to have these like off-season-y transaction thoughts, you know what I mean? Like trade him, cut him. What's his contract? Those are off-season-y thoughts. You probably need to reevaluate what you think a pass rusher's job is. And what you expect from everybody on the D-line. So that's something. There are a few ref calls that I'm not going to really go into. I kind of think that the, like, was it a catch, wasn't it a catch stuff was all close enough that it's hard for me to be super, super mad at it. But what I will go into is some of the coaching stuff, in particular, the late game kind of clock meltdown that the Vikings had. They're in 4-minute drill. They have the ball back from, well, it was the blocked kick, I think, after the Levi Drake Rodriguez got that blocked kick, by the way, and he got a game ball for it. It was not Elijah Williams like Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady seemed to think. I don't know how they kept looking at that replay and seeing it, but I'm going to give it to Kevin Burkhardt because he was busy last night. he was doing something. So I'll get that, but I did think that the broadcast was wrong about a lot of those ref calls and about sometimes they just said the wrong name or the wrong number and they were kind of out of sorts. It was weird, but you can't get your opinions from the broadcast. You have to find when you're getting your opinions from the broadcast and be like, wait, do I think that, or did Tom Brady just tell it to me and now I think that? Like, you have to like think for yourself a little bit because sometimes they just aren't like right. Sometimes they just get the name wrong. They're just objectively like, I didn't see the ball on the ground as the ball rattles on the ground. But anyways, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the blocked kick and how it led to the Vikings having a possession in scoring range and they could kick a field goal really easily. But then the clock mattered a lot. They got that with like 6 minutes left and they ended up kicking the field goal with 3.5 minutes left. And they could have taken a whole nother minute off if they had managed the clock properly. There are two plays here and I put them both on McCarthy more than O'Connell. One was a run play that didn't make it. That's fine, right? Because you take 40 seconds off the clock. And it mattered because it was about to be a 2-score game. So, like, this time really is important. You're starting to figure out, okay, the math has to go at what point on the clock do the Lions have to onside kick it? And that point is if they ever have to use a timeout and then they're on the other side of the 2-minute warning, they have to onside kick it. That's kind of how it how the math works out, right? So with that, on second down and goal, you go for an end zone shot to Justin Jefferson. From a play call perspective, I can respect it. Super easy once it's incomplete to go, but it stopped the clock. Yeah, they knew they were risking that, but they had a one-on-one to Justin Jefferson. Are you ever going to be mad about taking a one-on-one to 18? Come on now. By the way, injury on him. If you were worried he was cramping, he had pickle juice on the sidelines. If you missed it, also Aaron Jones AC joint sprain. They think that they got good news on him. They're probably going to do more tests, but it seems as though the initial returns are that it is a minor shoulder thing and that he's got a chance to be back next week. So we'll keep an eye on all that. But I don't hate that. What I don't like is McCarthy taking it because it was covered. I don't think he should have thrown it. I think he should have progressed. And that's a situation where, like, as the quarterback, you have to understand a sack is not bad right now. Like, usually in the red zone, every instinct you ever have is never take the sack. You're making the field goal longer. But in this case, because it keeps the clock running, you kind of would have rather had that than an incomplete pass. So you can be more aggressive about how you're reading. If you go, well, I got to get the ball out, and so I'm going to test that, it's a different calculus versus I don't want to test that, and I don't really need to get the ball out because if I get sacked, it's not that bad. I'm going to progress to my next thing. You have to just have that situational awareness. And then on the scramble that happened on third down, you just can't go out of bounds. Slide, take your 3-yard loss, keep the clock running. So I don't blame O'Connell for that. I think that that's the young quarterback just not quite having that situational mastery. But again, these are the conversations we're having where, oh, you just kind of you didn't go out of bounds when you were supposed to. I don't know if he knows what football is. Like, the bar is very, very, very low, and he cleared it. That's where we're at. So we can raise the bar going into the next game with McCarthy and see if he clears that this time. Now we're getting a baseline for what he is and what he has to improve on. There are also some like fourth down things. The Vikings punted on a couple of fourth downs where all the analytics bots thought they should go. I agree with the bots in that particular case, but it's worth mentioning that he got super rewarded because the one of them turned into a fumble, I think, and one of them was like a 3-and-out. So they got the ball back really quick and were right back where they were within like 2 minutes of game time. So they kind of got rewarded on those, but I guess it's worth mentioning if you're the kind of person that cares about that stuff a lot. But here's where I guess I'll leave you. Where the Vikings are at right now is, again, very anything goes. They are in the middle of a completely uncharted forest. They could play really, really well, hand the Ravens another road loss, get on a roll here, play the Bears at home, win that, suddenly be on a 3-game win streak. Like, can't you feel you're 6-4 and you're in the division race? You can feel that possibility. You can also feel that maybe they just got up super hard for this Lions game because they lost 5 in a row to the Lions and 5 in a row at Ford Field. And then you can see that the emotional letdown coming, right? Where this was their best punch. And now they're going to go into this Ravens game and they're going to fall apart. Like, you could see all of that happening. I really couldn't tell you how the next game is going to go or what kind of Vikings team we're going to get, which is a critique of them in and of itself. They're an inconsistent team. But the situation they are in means that all of that stuff is in front of them. They're a game and a half out of first. And I'll put it this way. They control their own destiny here. They can get ahead of the Packers by going blow for blow with the Packers from here on out and winning their 2 games against the Packers. That means they control their own destiny. And it's the same thing with the Lions and the Bears. They're only a game behind both of those 2 teams, and they have a win against both of those 2 teams now, which means if they win their next one, they would have the tiebreaker, and they just have to keep it even from there. So the Vikings have all of the control in the world in what they can do right now. They are not insurmountably behind in a terrible, tough division. You're going to see a bunch of people, bad faith, be like, they're in last place in the dreaded, ever so difficult NFC North. Someone get me my fainting couch. No, they're right in the thick of this thing. And the whole season is still very much in front of them. For me, as an analyst, okay, I don't need to have that mentality. For me, I am still looking at this as a team that is finding its sea legs. And if they can find their sea legs by the end of the year, even if the record doesn't reflect it, I can find that and say, okay, well, that's something to build on going into next year. And if they have something that works, that is, by the end of the year, they get hot and it's right, even if they don't get like the tiebreakers they need or whatever, you feel a lot better about the option of running it back. And it's like the grand, 10,000 mile view of where the Vikings are at. But for them, of course, they're going to take it one game at a time. They're not thinking about any of that crap right now. They're just going to try to beat the Ravens. And that's what is going to have to happen next. But what we need to continue to see from McCarthy and the Vikings is that level of competence. And I need to see it improve. There were simply too many busted plays, simply too many big, giant mistakes from the false starts and huddle errors to, Grenard jumping off sides on a fourth down. Like, that discipline stuff has got to stop, and you have to be an organized operation. Once you are an organized operation, then the talent shines. And we saw a glimpse of that, even though it wasn't quite organized enough to be perfect. It was organized enough to beat a Super Bowl contender in their own house. That's something to be happy with. I will see you all tomorrow for Town Hall Tuesday. Get your questions in. The link to the Google Doc to submit them is in the show notes to any episode. I will see you all for that. And as always, Skol.